Welcome to Metabolic Matters podcast, where we embark on conversations with thought leaders, disruptors, change agents, and passionate souls. Together, we'll delve into what truly matters to them. And you'll learn how to metabolize this newfound wisdom so you can transform your own metabolic health. Now let's meet today's guest.
Maggie and Brad Jones are the creators of the documentary series Cancer Evolution or Cancer Revolution, however your eye picks up on those words put together, which is an award-winning multi-part docu-series focusing on the metabolic theory of cancer and emerging therapies related to it. This documentary has been recognized for its insightful dissection of the current flaws in cancer treatment and for highlighting vital aspects of cancer research. Maggie Jones' own experience with cancer was the inspiration behind this docu-series. She was diagnosed with a terminal cancer diagnosis at the age of 40 and given a prognosis of less than a year to live. This personal battle with cancer influenced her and Brad to create the documentary. The documentary aims to shed light on the metabolic theory of cancer, a concept that's been overlooked for over a century, but is finally gaining attention for its potential to change the future of cancer care. The first episode of their docuseries addresses the history and significance of the metabolic theory of cancer. But have a listen as we dive a little bit deeper into Maggie's story, Brad's story, and the story of how a docuseries could change everything. What a treat that I get to be on this side of the screen talking to you and asking you questions instead of the other way around.
So yeah, what's going on? What's going on here?
It's a conversation. It's both ways. But overall, we are just so flattered and honored to be part of the early stages of this podcast because it's going to change so many lives.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You guys, first of all, thank you for saying yes to doing this because you're big deal filmmakers now, and I'm just a small little guppy in the pond. And so it's an honor to have you here. And, I was trying to think when I was thinking about how we were going to talk today and what this was going to be about, I want to tell the story, first of all. I want people to hear your story because a lot of people will know it from other ways, but I want it to be more in this environment to talk about it. But how did our lives, I think, is it just because I'm a 32-year plus cancer thriver and I'm in this metabolic oncology space? Like, how did we stumble upon? I can't remember how our story started together. Do you guys remember?
I do, because I stumbled on you based on a little book you wrote, Metabolic Approach to Cancer, about 6 months after my terminal diagnosis, and that is what changed my life. And so you had been in my pantheon of heroes for a while, not just for the treatments that you turned me onto, but just this beacon of hope and inspiration. And if she did it, I can do it. And that was the beginning. And then I think I hunted you down at the Metabolic Health Summit about a year, like immediately after I was no evidence of disease, which was about a year after my diagnosis. And then the redhead, we just hit it off.
I know. There you go. Because we are apparently a dying breed. So we got to keep ourselves going. I think I knew that on one level, Maggie, but I think it just seems it's just so weird to me that you have done this, in my opinion, really powerfully resourcing in all the things. And you and Brad as a power team and making that happen and what it's turned into. But before we go into this a little bit further, I want to know how you two met.
Oh, do you want to tell it?
Let's talk pre-cancer. Let's get into
we can bounce back and forth like we normally do, but I had a roommate, and I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and he had invited a friend of his over, and his friend brought a girlfriend, and it happened to be like a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning, and so when we had like in the days that you do in your 20s, or an impromptu party the night before, and so I was pretty much just trying to make the apartment just look like it wasn't 2 bachelors living there. I'm not sure how good of a job I was doing, but
It's so good because I was doing the dishes in the sink and I had to pour these margaritas down the drain and it broke my heart. And I turned to Brad and I said, "It's such a tragedy." And he looked at me and said, "Yes, it is."
yeah.
And then that evening I went and I told my live-in boyfriend, like, "That Brad guy, we're single and I were single. You'd have to watch out." And I think it was like 4 months later, we were both single.
Somehow she was single. Yeah.
Uh,
Yes. I'm like, my jaw is dropping because that is really fun and
It
really
was really
precious.
cute. I mean, she walked in the door and I literally was like, I have to remove myself from this room because I was so attracted to her. I went into the kitchen and started cleaning. That was literally what I did because I was like, I don't want to embarrass my roommate. I definitely don't want to, embarrass his friend. I was like, I'm just going to yeah.
And I remember at the time, I did not believe in soulmates. I feel like you just work at a relationship, you make it work. But 20 years later, I look at Brad and everything we've been through, and there's no question to me, he is my soulmate.
Yeah. Yeah.
God,
I can't get mad at her because I'm just like, dang it.
I do my best to get him to get mad at me. But
Well, it's really interesting because, one of the things I marvel at is the long-term relationships that weather many storms, whatever they may be. And, we have our vows of in sickness and in health, but I think until really the rubber hits the pavement, it's hard to really know what that means. And so as someone who's been where Maggie is, I'm curious, Brad, because of course my partner in crime for over 32 years now, he went through this entire journey with me. Where probably everybody else on the planet would have thought I was absolutely nuts for my approach and the way I do things. I'm sure you guys have met with similar, experiences in some ways, especially that, with what it's turned into. But before we tell Maggie's story, I would just be curious to hear from the partner of someone going through a health crisis and what that's like for you when you are looking at your partner's process of looking at their own mortality and what that means for you.
Yeah. Well, honestly, so there's a couple things. One, I was certainly just internally devastated, right? Just trying to sort of process what this was. I mean, I remember even the day she was diagnosed, they were like stage 4, and I didn't even quite comprehend what stage 4 was, right? Like, I was like, is that a bad stage, right? Like, I literally didn't know. Are there more stages, right? Yeah. I didn't know anything really about cancer. I mean, she's diagnosed when she's so young, and it just wasn't something. Nobody in our lives that we were close to had gone through a cancer diagnosis. So yeah. So there was that sort of initial emotional punch, and but I would say that one of the things that I just kind of tried to do was, as I was like, I'm not, even though I did give in to her in a sense, I was like, I'm not going to just let her give up. And you know what I mean? I was like, there was sort of this sort of tough love idea where I was like, I'm going to just keep treating her how I always have treated her. I felt like it would be weird if I started just completely
nice
babying.
I talk about in sickness and in health. I was like, I'm dying. I want you to feel sorry for me. I want to pity. And he never did that.
Like, you get 10 minutes on the pity potty, lady. You only get.
She got, I mean, without question, she got some, but yeah, there was definitely a concerted effort on my part to not go too far, to make sure that it was like, hey, you're going to pull through, and that's how I felt like I could convey to her that I thought she was going to pull through, is like, hey, you don't get treated any special. You're, still like a normal person. So come on, let's go.
And it meant so much that he never treated me like a sick person. And so I couldn't see myself as a sick person. And eventually I wasn't a sick person. And I credit a lot of that to your approach.
Oh my gosh. That just gives me chills, and it resonates so deeply. Because I think that that's one of the superpowers that Steve and I had through that process too, was I wasn't a cancer diagnosis. I was dealing with a situation, and I had good support around finding solutions and whatever that meant for me, with a partner who never treated me like I was sick, ever. And to,
which is good and bad, right?
Right. And I don't think I would have let him had he tried, but it's just it wasn't in either of our DNA. So I love hearing that, because it's a different place. It's a place of empowerment, which it sounds like you two shared and supported for each other. So this is clearly, so now if folks are new to you, Maggie, and your story, despite the fact that I feel like your reach is really extensive now, and we'll go into that here more as well, but you're one of those other clear pain to purpose processes. So I would love for you to talk about, first of all, a little bit about your background, your personal experience, and how that has shaped your perspective on just life.
And it truly has, because my life was so different before my diagnosis. One of the many adventures Brad and I were going on was we had just moved to Hong Kong from our home in Los Angeles. And so it was a whole new world, just navigating that, the language, the streets, the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And in the months moving up to this, I didn't give myself, I knew something was wrong with me. I felt some symptoms, but I didn't have time to go see a doctor. I didn't have time to give to myself, which is a characteristic of mine. And then once we got to Hong Kong, it was a new job. I needed to impress. I didn't have time to go to a doctor. And so some of the symptoms I've been having were a cough, but I'd recently been to Beijing and I was like, oh, Beijing lung, some definite swelling around my neck that, my lymph nodes, I know now, but I was like, oh, I'm just getting fat. But eventually the one that I couldn't hide from was I was going blind in my right eye. And once I told Brad, because I hadn't been totally forthcoming with some of my symptoms with him, he told me I had to go see a doctor. I thought it was a detached retina. So it was Sunday because I didn't want to miss work. And we looked everywhere for the one ophthalmologist that was open on Sunday in Hong Kong. And we found one in a great hospital. And we went to him. He looked in my eye and immediately ordered an emergency MRI that the next day showed that I had tumors in my brain, tumors in my eye. We knew it was elsewhere. And I still feel so sorry for this ophthalmologist, this eye doctor who had to tell me I was going to die, essentially. But I did see the oncologist the next day. Hong Kong is very efficient, as we know, and was immediately pushed into that cycle of traditional treatment. Like, let's get chemotherapy and your radiation. I was inoperable, thank goodness, or I would have done that. I was thinking, man, I have two eyes. Can't we just cut one out? But it was chemo, radiation, and of course, all of this was palliative only. I was inoperable, terminal, incurable. They just wanted to make my life comfortable, giving me 6 to 8 months to live on.
Sorry, I had to laugh at that.
Maybe
comfortable in the midst of torturing you a little bit. Yeah.
And I was ready for that. I was ready to die, and I wanted to do it well and make everybody proud of me. And I always say, thank goodness that lasted less than a week. Brad took me away to a little weekend getaway that next weekend, not even a month or a week since my diagnosis. And I started reading my books. And I started reading about survivors like you and others out there, and how so often these incredible stories begin with a radical diet change. And I decided that Sunday, not even a week since my diagnosis, that I was going to do my first fast for 24 hours, and I wasn't going to put anything in my body that wasn't actively healing for it from then on. And to me, I defined that, looking at PubMed and all these books I was reading, that I had to improve my immune system, actively kill cancer cells in the petri dish, or reduce my inflammation. And with these things, I sent Brad out to the streets of Hong Kong to find organic food. We started fasting, OMAD. Obviously, this was a ketogenic way of eating. And for me, ketosis, we know, is a state. It has nothing to do with the prescribed diet. But after looking at just my personal background, it happened to also be plant-based this first year. I had some animal protein and eggs and fish. I don't recommend anybody eat exactly the way I do. People should consult their own physicians and practitioners on the right way to eat for them. But that was the best way for me to get into the state of ketosis that was so healing. And holy smokes, sum up, 1 year later, exactly 1 year, my scans showed that I was no evidence of disease. And one more thing, I hate that term because there is always evidence of disease, as you know, Nasha. It's traumatic, there's PTSD, there's scarring in my lungs, and one of the most devastating you'll hear in my voice is I have something called brain radiation necrosis from all my brain tumors and mostly the radiation to them. Sometimes I have some challenges speaking, I have seizures. There's always something. Last thing for real. But the one thing, I don't mind these things because it's what reminds me that I have to prioritize myself and my body.
Yes.
And that's what I learned from you, Nasha, is cancer is a messenger. And if I look at it like this, what is this symptom telling me right now? It just makes my whole life better.
In fact, I actually remember a presentation where there was a picture of you, Nasha, on screen, and Maggie saying like, "Cancer is a messenger," and I got the message.
Thank you, Tommy.
That gives me such goosebumps. And I'm certain that there are a lot of people sitting here with goosebumps, tears, hell yeahs, whatever is on the other side listening to this, because that is so powerful. And I want people to know, like, you did bring in a few, again, you noted what they offered was palliative only, no expectations of cure.
Yeah.
You had, I think you've told me this, less than 0%, like you're like, I basically had 0%, less than 1%. It was like a point something percent of survival expected.
The 5-year-old survival rate at the time was less than 1%. So it rounded to 0. Actually, as of a study last year, though, it's up to 4% survival rate. So I'm adding to those statistics.
Maybe you messed with the statistic.
Right.
I love it. And so you just like, that's just it. It showed you a different way to live, a different way to be.
Exactly. I looked at it and I realized that I hadn't been living. Everything in my past had been just waiting for the next thing. I want to get rid of my job so I can relax. I want to finish the dishes so I can go sit on the couch with Brad. It was all about deferred gratification. And when I found out I was going to die imminently, it's like, well, I better live first. I only have a couple of months. And so I started things like addressing my stress. I quit drinking completely because that wasn't something healing to my body. I started meditation, yoga, mindfulness-based stress reduction. I tried everything. Exercise for like the first time for fun. And very slowly I started feeling my body and really listening to it and feeling so sorry for what I did to it. Because as you know, it's, cancer is not a bacterial infection or a virus or anything. It's your body's own cells crying out for help. And I wanted to help them and I love them so much. And I feel that way. I'm getting chills right now because I feel that way every day. And I can finally say, and I know it's really hard for some people with cancer right now to feel this way, but cancer for me became the best thing that ever happened to me.
I appreciate you saying that because it, like you said, there'll be people listening from various stages of this process. And, that's just it. And it's also not linear, which I think is also interesting. You are now more contending with the side effects of some of the standard of care treatments. And I'm sure, as I feel in many ways in my own body, that I'm grateful for some of those experiences. It's having some of the symptoms and side effects I have from my journey. It's like, at least I get to have that journey, that experience,
It's made me so much more compassionate. Like things that used to be, irritating to me or made me be impatient. Now I'm doing them because I have a brain injury and I needed this to be able to truly appreciate other people and myself. I'm a better person. I'm not great, but I'm getting better.
Amazing. And you just hit, because I say you guys, because this is not just Maggie's journey. This is Brad's journey as well. This is why I love having you both on this. But you just hit how many years out from your terminal stage 4 lung cancer out of nowhere diagnosis?
Over 5. So I made that 0%.
Yeah. That's out from diagnosis and 4 years of
NED.
Yeah.
Or no active disease.
No active disease. Yeah.
One more thing I want to tell the people who are listening. I almost hate that I ever had that status because that should not be your goal. I don't want, no evidence of disease to be what somebody's working for. We are all working for a great life. Yes. And that's it. It doesn't matter what your scans say. It matters how you feel right now.
Are you in the cancering process and looking for a physician to support you in taking a metabolic approach? Or maybe you're feeling unwell, despite being told you're quote unquote healthy. Or perhaps you're experiencing things like fatigue, brain fog, weight gain, digestive issues, chronic pain, or high blood pressure. Or maybe you just want to prevent these things from ever becoming a part of your life. It's time to become your own health advocate and to explore how the metabolic approach can help you achieve true health and wellness while also preventing and treating disease.
I have trained hundreds of clinicians and advocates across the globe in the metabolic approach to cancer. But what many don't realize is that this really should be called the metabolic approach to life, to health, and to wellness creation, because this approach can help anyone seeking to overcome chronic illness issues while also preventing disease. Our practitioners and our advocates are thoroughly trained in a terrain-based approach and skilled in supporting individuals through the cancering process, helping people prevent cancer recurrence, and helping anyone who wants to achieve optimal metabolic health. Our data-driven approach, the test, assess, address, never guess methodology, has consistently improved patient outcomes, and our practitioners and advocates will use this approach to create a very personalized plan just for you. To connect with one of our terrain practitioners or advocates, visit my.terrain, TERRAIN.network, NETWORK. That's my.terrain.network. Let's embark on this path to healing and thriving together.
And also, I feel like there's something about that free and clear from your doctor that kind of, it kind of makes you be like, well, now I don't have to worry about this anymore, right? And that's not been the experience that obviously we've not had, but in talking to other people with cancer, it's the people that sort of thought their lives were back to normal, and then all of a sudden they have a recurrence that's that could be kind of a bad one, and it's like it sort of sneaks up on them, right? And it's like,
but it's not, because the lifestyle that gave you cancer might have something to do with giving you cancer the next time.
Yeah. Exactly. And my quote is always, you cannot heal from the soil in which you got sick. And so one of the things that I hear people say all the time is, oh, I can't wait to get back to.
Yes, right.
Pre-cancer life or what have you. And what I'm really hoping people hear is that, first of all, your life won't ever be the same. It can't, nor should it be. But also you want to make sure you never return back to the place, the environment, internally, externally, energetically, inside and outside of you, that allowed for this process to really take root. So I think that's really a powerful statement.
I look back and I did die. That old Maggie died from that diagnosis. I will never have a margarita again. I never would have met Brad and cleaned out his dishes and thought it was a tragedy. But the person who was born in her place is so much more fun and awesome, and way more better life.
That gives me goosebumps. And Brad, for you, what changed? What did cancer heal in you?
Gosh, that's an interesting question. I mean, obviously, I went along in this amazing health journey with Maggie as far as the dietary aspects of it, right? And so, in a super real way, I mean, I just feel like I'm more healthy than I've been in a long time. I lost around 30 pounds, maybe 35 pounds, somewhere in that range. So now I stick around under 150, and I have energy, and I'm sure my BMI is down, I mean, it's really nice, because you kind of get in this little rut of not worrying about that stuff. That's really actually one of the things that is great, is I felt like when I was, a little overweight, it's like you're kind of on this sort of diet roller coaster. And I wasn't ever a giant dieter, but I mean, it would eventually add up and I'd be like, I got to lose some weight, right? I'd go to strap in on my snowboard and I'm like, I can barely reach, really reach the straps and so, that's one of the things that's been awesome over the last 4 years is I just am, I just don't ever really worry about it. So, that's a very real thing that's
I'd say also happened. You joined me in a lot of the mindfulness practice, a lot of the personal work that we've done with our relationship, because like you said, 20 years is a long time, better for worse. And I think our relationship has improved tremendously.
Meditation's been really nice. I mean, just have more patience with the world, with and I mean, Maggie and I try to just always think of whoever it is that I have to talk to on the phone or deal with at the airline counter, it's just hey, this person is going through their own stuff.
Yeah.
It's try and give them the benefit of the doubt. They're not there to ruin your day. It's so this just sort of being able to take a deep breath and just appreciate the world. And I don't know, it just makes it so much easier to get through anything. It's so that's yeah.
Amazing. Well, and I think what's really great for people to hear as well is that you do not have to get a cancer diagnosis to take a metabolic approach, a terrain-centric approach to your whole life, and the treatment and prevention of other conditions outside of cancer. And I think that a lot of folks think about what I do for a living, or Maggie, what you've applied to yourself, or a lot of the folks you guys work with and have interviewed for your docu-series, that this is only specific for people dealing with cancer. And that's just like, I wish my book was called The Metabolic Approach to Life, or The Metabolic Approach to Prevention, or The Metabolic Approach to healthcare, because it does, like, people think, oh, not me, until it's me, right? And so thoughts on that?
The first 4 years after this lifestyle change, we were commenting to each other, like, we haven't been sick. It's crazy, not a cold, not anything. And I realized this is the way people are meant to live. Like, what we've developed in the last 70 years in what the West is not conducive to health.
So Maggie and I were overseas when COVID started. And we were in Europe. we were in Hong Kong. Then when we went to London, and then since everything was like blocked off flights in and out of U.S., we could have gone back to the U.S. because we have U.S. passports, but or U.S. citizens. But we were like, well, if we go back to the U.S., we're stuck there. So we actually finagled our way down into Europe. And so, but the point of this is just that we were traveling a lot, even during COVID. And I have never had COVID. It's never popped up for me. Maggie ended up getting it one time when she went to Indonesia.
I think I didn't get tested because I was already quarantining in a meditation retreat.
She went to kind of live in a hut for a little while, and that's when she thinks she has COVID.
Back to that for a moment.
So she was like, what do I do? Like, do I like drive into town and like get a COVID test? I was like, no, just stay where you are. You're not planning on leaving So it just kind of ruined her little staycation, I guess. But
nothing ruined.
Not ruined. But anyway, so back to the point of we've both been just super healthy. I've had one cold in about 4 or 5 years. Maggie's had COVID once, and I think she's only had like 2 colds. So it's kind of interesting that, you were talking about like how this all ties in. It's like, I mean, type 2 diabetes is, I believe, reversible for almost everyone now with this, with the diet like this. And then, how it just impacts, it's just showing it heart disease, all the things that are tied into your cardiovascular system, right? It can really improve that. Obviously, obesity, it's direct, so
I'll tell you, the hard part of this lifestyle is not telling everybody, keeping your mouth closed to let people make their own decisions.
It's not being invited from you. You're like,
make your own decision, but trying to just be a good example for others. But it's a struggle sometimes to be like, oh gosh, just read this book.
I was just going to say, like, I've broken down a little bit lately, and just so I don't have to have a conversation with like friends and family, I've just started giving out Gary Taub's The Case for Keto.
I love it.
It's very simple, very straightforward, just talks about, not to, plug his book, but it's a great starting book that's not about any particular disease. It's just about ketogenic diets. And so I've just, started giving that to friends and family, just be like, hey, look, I don't want to give you the whole spiel. If you want to know a little bit about it, read this book. And,
I love it. I love it. I love it. And the word keto has become kind of a bad word in some people's mouths and ideas, which is unfortunate. So I really like how Maggie even started us off that this is more of a state of ketosis in which you can achieve that in a multitude of ways. She has already alluded to her plant heavy starting point. Fasting gets you there. Exogenous ketones can get you there. High fat, low carb, just carbohydrate restricting. I bring that up because it doesn't matter. But when you carb restrict naturally, you will end up in some level of a natural state of ketosis. And so I think that's what's really great. And Gary's book, I think, really does a nice job in helping people understand how we've gotten to this point and what we need to do to change it and improve upon our all of our statistics in all the chronic illnesses. In fact, a conference that you guys will be a sponsor of this summer, the Keto Live Summit in Switzerland, it's all the things, all the chronic illnesses, from neurological disease, obesity, diabetes, cancer. You're sponsoring the Cancer Day, but also mental health, mental illness. The things that I think a lot of people might be able to comfortably equate obesity or diabetes to metabolic disorders, but really all the conditions that plague us today are directly related to metabolic disorders, including, as you mentioned, cardiovascular disease. So I just think it's really great that you're planting some seeds in folks that might be listening to this out of just curiosity of the big picture. But I'm hoping that people who do not have a chronic illness they're contending with, or a cancer diagnosis they're contending with, they realize that there's a way to also head these things off at the pass. So.
And it doesn't even have to be any kind of diet. I'm convinced that if you just cut out processed foods, including seed oils and sugar, then you're halfway there. You're 90% of the way there.
I love it. That's huge. And so, because you have been on this journey now for 5 years, this is what I would be curious about is when you do get asked, when someone does sit next to you on an airplane with all of your travels, how do you describe the metabolic approach to cancer in like an elevator spiel? How do you guys do that?
I start stumbling and stuttering, and then I look at Brad.
I mean, usually the simplest way to describe it is that the cancer cells use more glucose. They use more sugar than other normal cells in your body. And so the only way that you can get more glucose into your system, into your blood, is by eating carbohydrates. So, I mean, that's not the only way. Obviously, you can, but you can significantly reduce the amount of glucose in your bloodstream if you restrict the carbohydrates you eat. And so, can you ever bring your glucose blood level completely down to zero? No, you can't. But it just makes sense to people when you tell them, it's like, hey, if you could just sort of, feed the cancer less, wouldn't that be helpful? And of course that usually resonates with most people. So that's how I try to explain it.
I can't avoid getting into the bigger things of, creating these ketones in your body. Those have their own powerful healing properties, which I think, Nasha, you could explain better. But for me, it's a big deal about the brain, my brain injury, signaling properties, reducing inflammation. Yeah.
I love it. And that's, and one of our colleagues, I think she's in your documentary, Dr. Adrienne Scheck, she's been able to show us on the major hallmarks of cancer that basically every virtual doorway into each of those hallmarks or each of those processes that get cancer up and running, ketone bodies themselves have a significant impact. And I think I can't think of a single drug that works on all of or most of those hallmarks of cancer at one time.
Yes.
No, I don't think there is one.
I can't think of a single. Maybe something that might hit 2 or 3 targets, but not, what are we up to, 14 or 16 now targets? Yeah.
What's really interesting about that hallmarks of cancer is not only was it created by, someone who's a firm believer in the somatic mutation, the genetic mutation theory of cancer, but you mentioned that Adrienne Scheck has now tied all of them to the metabolic theory of cancer, right? Cancer metabolism. Well, there's one that they still can't tie to genetics, metastasis. There's no gene that causes cancer to metastasize, right? So even with their own theory, they can't, like I say these really smart scientists that just think a little bit differently than we do. People that believe that it's a genetic disease, they're having trouble tying all of these hallmarks even to the genetic theory. I just think that's kind of interesting.
Absolutely. And, I think so there's that piece, because there's still a lot of, it's amazing to me, despite the amount of evidence and the amount of time I've been on this journey with myself and with tens of thousands of patients, and now hundreds of doctors with their tens of thousands of patients. And, we're like a good STD spreading across the globe here. I'm surprised it's not more.
Tell me more about your training.
I know, exactly. Are you a healthcare practitioner feeling increasingly alienated in a system that seems to have lost touch with its heart? Do you find yourself yearning to reconnect with the essence of why you entered this field to begin with, to truly help people? If so, I invite you to consider a path
that will rekindle your passion for medicine. Our Metabolic Approach to Cancer Master Course, starting February 7th, offers not just an education, but a heartwarming journey back to the roots of why you chose this profession. Born from my own journey as a teenager, grappling with a cancer diagnosis and navigating a failing medical system, it is a testament to the power of transformation and the human spirit. We will dive deep into a patient-first methodology, blending standard of care with naturopathic and complementary therapies, all while focusing on true healing and prevention. Explore our Terrain 10 concept, a compassionate approach to understanding the multifaceted nature of cancer, as well as other metabolic diseases. It's about giving you the tools to not just treat, but truly connect with your patients on a deeper level, addressing their unique health needs. By joining this course, you won't just gain knowledge, you'll reclaim the joy and fulfillment of being a practitioner. You'll be part of a community that values patient-centric care, underpinned by the latest research and ethical practices. In this era of healthcare, where so many feel frustrated and unable to provide the care they deeply desire, ask yourself, is it time to reignite my passion for medicine, to be part of a movement that restores the soul of healthcare and places the well-being of my patients at its very heart and soul? If these questions touch a chord with you, please join us. Enroll today at matc.terrain.network. That's M as in Mary, atc.terrain, TERRAIN.network, NETWORK. And use the code podcast20 to get 20% off your course fee. Together, let's bring warmth, empathy, and genuine healing back into the heart of healthcare.
One of the things I think is also really cool about your process is that you wove together standard of care with a metabolic approach. Do we need to choose between those two?
Absolutely not. Just reading the research, we have so many friends who have found healing just using the metabolic approach. I'm thinking of Serena Ramica, who's just fasting in keto. Some people who only use surgery, like Pablo Kelly with his GBM. For me, I know what works for me, and I had a lot of faith in allopathic medicine at the time that I was being treated. And so I chose to use the palliative treatments that are out there. But one thing that we do know is that these metabolic treatments increase the efficacy of your conventional treatments like radiation and chemo. And I can't, like, my favorite story is I've had 2 rounds of brain radiation surgery for these 4 tumors. Same hospital, 2 tumors each. The first time I went, I was so sick. I spent 3 weeks on the couch, sweating, vomiting, crying. It was hell. It was about 4 months later, I had my second round for 2 new tumors. And I walked back from the hospital that day. It was a Friday, and I went to work on Monday. And the only difference is I fasted, 72 hours, a little bit more,
like 3 days
before my treatment, and about a day afterwards. And that was when the healing power of fasting was really solidified for me. And it's now my favorite treatment. Every now and then I'll have just a feeling of needing to pay more attention to my cancer. And it's just a fast, and it sets my mind at ease. It cleans my body. It's my favorite way to get into ketosis, and this is the best. I can't talk enough.
I would just add to that we, because we talk to a lot of cancer patients as part of, what we're about. Exactly. And the number of people that still do the standard of care, they still do a chemo or a radiation or both. But what they're finding, or what these people are telling us, is that they're having to do the standard care for much shorter periods of time, right? They're like, their doctors are like, you're done. You don't need to do any more, right? When they go in, they think they're going to have to do months and months of, these kinds of therapies. And so if you're on the fence, if there's people out there that are just like, well, why would I even bother with eating different? It's like, well, maybe you could, shorten the number of times you have to get injected with chemotherapy. That would be awesome,
Reduce
right?
the dose.
Like, I would give up Snickers bars for that, right? So,
I love this. Yeah.
say there are really three things that we know metabolic therapies, especially ketogenic state, can do for us. And it's increase the efficacy of that standard of care. It
Huge.
can improve your quality of life. We know this so much. And then some people like me are very lucky that it prolongs your life. And for me, there was never a question of whether I wanted more margaritas or I wanted the shot at those three things.
Right. And, there are people who will choose the margaritas, and there's absolutely nothing. And I really appreciate, and I love that you brought that up, because you have been very careful and very clear. And as have I in my journey of, we get to make a choice every single moment of how we choose to show up. And, for someone who has faced their mortality, it's sometimes maybe easier to make what it seems to the outsider a hard decision when it is nothing feels as good as health, right? And so, or nothing tastes as good as health, or nothing tastes as good as living.
But you're absolutely right. For some people, we can't pass judgment on that. Actually, my cousin passed away of breast cancer, spread to the brain, about 2 weeks ago. And I had, talked to her about my experience, and it wasn't for her. And that is absolutely okay. And I actually had to fight for her, for some of the family, that this is her decision not to pursue these different treatments. She had her own that worked for her, and it's her life. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That is definitely not, this is the right way to treat cancer. It's just an option.
And then it's another way, because I think we've all been lied to that there's just the standard of care. And my hope is that, and I think it's changing, that we're talking about is standard of care, right? That the bringing the worlds together, the best of both worlds, the best of what standard of care has to offer, and maybe even a reimagined, reinvigorated, less toxic, more precise and personalized way, partnered with metabolic therapies, which includes a state of ketosis or ketone bodies typically in the mix to enhance that process, lower those side effects, lower the toxicity, et cetera. I think that should be, like, I'd love to go to a conference in my lifetime where they are just talking that this is the NCCN guidelines for cancer. And there's a lot of people that are having those conversations, and you guys somehow seem to wrangle them all together like herding cats. I can only imagine. But I want you to tell folks about how this evolved into what it is today. So here you guys are in Hong Kong, gallivanting around the world, trying to save your own life, be above and beyond what standard of care could just offer, trying to live with what fragile amount of time you perceived you had left, as things kept getting better, kind of probably wondering like, oh, that's interesting. But it's turned into something so much more for you guys. I would love for you to tell us about the birth of the docu-series.
I'm going to start this actually a little bit earlier. Just to note that it wasn't until after I received my all clear NAD diagnosis that I actually decided to leave my work at Hong Kong. And it was then that I realized this is the rest of my life. I'm never going to get over this. I'm never going to be done with cancer. I need to continue to focus on myself and my health. And that's when the gallivanting began. We're going to have fun.
Wow.
The time that we have.
In case you're wondering why we were cruising around Europe during COVID, it was because my wife had just, been through a year of cancer, just cleared a, stage 4 cancer diagnosis. And we were like, let's
celebrate life. Let's live.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we wanted to do something to give back. And I trained as a nutritionist. I tried some one-on-one coaching, and it wasn't right for me. I don't know how you did it, Nasha, because just cancer all the time, and so many people needing you to help them, and I was still new. I just knew it wasn't right for me. But luckily, my husband Brad is a genius filmmaker, and he had an idea.
I just was sort of watching from across the room, Maggie, on these like one-on-one calls with cancer patients, and like trying to explain the diet, and like, hey, you need to read this book, or you need to look at this website, and it just was so frustrating and heartbreaking to her, because she was just like, people just don't have time, or I can't explain it to them. Like, it's like, unless somebody buys in, like right from the very beginning, it's very hard to like sort of give somebody enough evidence or whatever you want to call it to sort of get them to change their mind.
I can't send somebody with grade 4 GBM to go read PubMed and read these articles.
Yeah.
They don't have the time or literally the bandwidth, the brain width to do so. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Like, here's Tom Seyfried's book. Like,
have at it.
Talk to you in a month, right?
For breakfast. Oh
yeah. So, so I had read some of the books that she had read, obviously, admittedly not as many, I will say. She kept trying to get me to read more and more. And I was like, I get it. I understand what you're doing. I don't need to read all the books that you're reading. Yeah, exactly. So, so then when watching her kind of go through this process and just knowing that she wanted to share what she had found, and really the only thing that was happening was the blog, and it wasn't just having the reach that she had hoped for. I was like, hey, we have met a couple of the people that, are now in the documentary. And I was like, why don't we reach out to them and see if they'd be interested in being part of a documentary? And we were really lucky that Travis Christopherson was one of the first people that we had reached out to. Maggie had been working with him at a clinic where they were prescribing some drugs. And so that's how we knew Travis. And he just kind of took a chance on us. He just said yes. So, and then
Travis.
And Travis, we really didn't, we hadn't made a documentary before, but we know obviously Maggie has some cred, some street cred. So, so that helped. And and then Travis is close friends with Tom Seyfried. And so,
and then this one redhead came on board.
Yeah. So it kind of steamrolled a little, sort of snowballed a little bit, right? Where it's like, once we had, a couple of those, amazing people on board, then a few other people joined in. And so then now the sticking point has just become me, where it's, it's like we got
everything, Brad. Come on.
We're trying. I know it's for the people that want more Cancer Revolution. I know it's frustrating, and it's just sort of, we're just trying to hold ourselves to a certain standard, so that it doesn't just get like put out there and then just flushed away. So, And
for people who are impatient for an episode 2, 3, and ultimately 4 especially, just read your book, Anisha. I feel like you've covered so much of this, and all of our wonderful experts have papers or books or podcasts that are out there that you can still find the answers, even while we're taking our sweet time.
Well, and you guys started out, you were going to tell the story in one fell swoop, and you had a few of us sitting there that first time going, okay, we who already get it are like, holy, drinking out of a fire hydrant.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And
the problem was, to smash all this into 90-minute or maybe even 2 hours, it was just, we kind of feel like it would have been like, there's like this analogy in a movie of like, with a submarine with a radar, like going over like a radio and not even hearing it, right? It's just this idea of like, it would have been coming at you so fast and furious that you really couldn't process it. And so that was one of our main questions for the audience that day that like saw that original sort of 2.5 hour,
raw footage. Yeah. Thank you for watching.
Yeah, it was like, so what do we cut out to get it down to, to a 90-minute documentary, or do we make it a docu-series? And if someone said to make it a 90-minute, I don't remember anybody in the audience saying that.
I can't imagine anybody.
The only person did is our wonderful, wonderful executive producer, Jim Abrams, who just was like, just get it done. But he's been very supportive of the docu-series format.
Amazing. But this is just it. It has become just that. It's become a docu-series. The first one is out. So I'd love to.
You can watch it right now on the website, cancerevolution.film. And that's with 1 R. So it sounds like cancerevolution.film. And you can watch it. We recommend $8 this goes to our nonprofit charity. It helps pay for the bandwidth, but you can see it for as little as $1 if you need to, because we know how expensive cancer treatment is.
Yeah. And just to give a shout out to that, they're too kind to say this, because this has been bootstrapped by them and a few generous people, donations, time of people, everyone involved. It's been a labor of love. But to produce something of this caliber, so I think when anybody sees it, they're just blown away I'm just blown away. I'm just going to leave it at that. So an $8 investment to go from it's a cheap date night with your partner, right? Or whatever for that piece. But this is also that funding also helps them get part 2, 3, and 4 out in the future. And so that's one of the things I just do want people to have a listen to. And even what I think is so extraordinary about the docu-series is even the number 1 stands by itself. Like, you've made them so they really can stand by themselves. They make you hungry for more, but they definitely can stand on their own. They give you so much good information. And I'm blown away at the feedback I'm getting from people seeing it. But tell us about the type of feedback you're getting from the general population. Tell it. And the film industry, the documentary.
Well, okay. So there's 2 kinds of feedback that we get.
Okay.
One, obviously, the film festivals and that are accepting it are fantastic. I've lost track of how many festivals it's actually been in, but I know we have won over 75 awards of various types at film festivals, which is just an amazing reception. We never thought that would be that big. But honestly, the kind of feedback that Maggie and I, that touches us the most, and we got one of these this morning, which was just an email, like, hey, a few months ago I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and now I'm doing really well, like something like, and we are very blessed that, like, this is helping people. And that's what we made it to be, is just this like jumping off point, right? It's just like
this is the information, use it to make whatever decision feels right for you.
Yeah. And but when you first get the diagnosis, or you're trying to help someone, if you're a caregiver and you're just like me, like I'm like brand new to this entire cancer world. I have no idea. And then I'm trying to, like, someone's trying to ask you to look at cancer from a slightly different perspective. Man, it really helps to have a foothold. And so that's what we were trying to do, is just sort of make something that's really easy. You can just sit on your couch and watch this, and then hopefully come away with a little bit of an understanding of how metabolism and cancer, go together, and what you can do about that.
And it's interesting too, I swear, it's not just cellular metabolism. It has Nazis.
Yeah. Well, that was part of the idea, right? It's like, let's not make a very dry, let's not like take a science book and turn it into a documentary, right? Yeah. So it's all about this crazy scientist who decided to stay in Nazi Germany who was Jewish and gay during World War II. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up.
No,
right?
You can't.
Yeah.
And to me, it just answers the questions of why haven't we heard about this? And that's what I've heard from so many people is, really, Maggie, if this works, my doctor would have told me. And I think episode 1 helps answer that question, why we haven't, from the societal and scientific forces that we just couldn't control 100 years ago.
Yeah. We just got caught up in genetics, and Warburg became a little bit unpopular because he was Jewish and stayed in Germany. And it's really easy to understand human nature to just sort of want to move on to the next thing. And, maybe we moved on a little quickly.
Yeah. And I love that you guys are helping many others in the field dust it off and take another gander at it and see what we can do to build upon it, improve upon it, and continue the dialogue, continue the conversation. And so on that note, with the 2 of you, I mean, obviously your project is still ongoing. It's a work in progress. You still have 3 more to knock out of the park here, which I have no doubt that you will. But I want to hear from the 2 of you, because you've been on this journey now, you've met probably every expert in the field of metabolic oncology, metabolomics, et cetera, from clinicians to patients to researchers, everything. Okay. Even to industry leaders and pharmacology, the pharmacy world, everything. Leave us with maybe what you have, maybe go at it this way. There's something that really surprised and excited you that you've experienced already, or something that is on the horizon. Let's leave a little hope bomb, because you are both a giant hope bomb, just as is. Let's put a little hope bomb bow on top of that, and tell me what you're really intrigued about right now, or have
what has shocked me so much during this entire journey, everything that I've learned, is how little we know. Because when I started this, I thought we knew everything. I thought science is figured out. We're going to have the answer to cancer. It's all about genetics, all about these targeted therapies. And I thought anything otherwise was a conspiracy theory. And just getting into the research now and getting to know these wonderful researchers and practitioners, I realized that there's so much we don't know, and there's nothing wrong with filling in the gaps for what works for you personally as an individual, because there isn't somebody in the lab coat who knows what's best for you.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Unless you put one on and look in the mirror. I don't know.
Yeah, I would add to that this idea of like, have you ever worked for a company, anyone who's like listening, worked for a company that is just completely altruistic, right? The idea is just to do good and to put good out into the world. And I mean, maybe there's a couple listeners out there that are lucky enough to have had that life experience, but the answer generally is no. And usually it's a kind of a hard no. Of course not, right? Well, why would you expect that science would be any different, right? Science and scientists, they are not altruistic. They have their own interests first. It's just human nature. It's not anything bad. Yeah. But I think that we kind of forget that, and we think that it's like, well, of course, these are people that are pursuing higher goals, and they're trying to cure diseases, and that will it'll have a big impact on humanity. And that was a big eye opener for me. Like, I remember a couple phone calls I had with Travis, which was like, I just don't understand. This is like proven science here. It's like, it's in like tons of papers. How come it's now not like the standard of, and he was like, well, that's not how it works. It's like, there's two different competing scientific papers out there. You can choose to be this is the one that you believe. And I was like, I literally was like, I just had no idea how that world worked, right? That you could, pick and choose your facts, basically. And I was just like, I thought that was really crazy.
And let's say, I think scientists can get into it for altruistic reasons. I think there is that altruism, sure, but the system constrains them that might hamper those ideas.
Yeah, very much like that. I'm getting to the hope bomb part, by the way. I haven't made it there yet. Yeah, but science is just a lot like the medical community too, where it's just sort of like, yeah, you get in this because you want to help people, and then you get stuck in a system where you're forced to do things a certain way, and you can't think outside the box, and maybe that flow chart that you have doesn't help the person that's in front of you. Then what do you do, right? So yeah, I think it's pretty easy to see how both science and medicine aren't exactly leading us directly towards a cure for cancer, right?
There's not a lot of impetus to really cure.
Yeah.
But
the hope bomb is that since we've started doing this, there actually are a lot of people that are starting to pay attention to cancer metabolism, right? So I'm not going to say that it's front page news tomorrow, but it is amazing that every once in a while we bump into somebody and they're like, oh yeah, I've heard about that. Like, somebody I know is researching that, right? Who was not related to our world of cancer metabolism, right? And so I think that's really exciting, right? When you just hear that that's something that people are looking into, scientists are coming across it on their own or whatever, there's research being done about it, even at the big Johns Hopkins of the world that are very much invested in the somatic mutation theory, but they're still kind of hedging their bets, I guess, in a sense. Yeah. It's like, hey, we get, which wasn't happening in the past. That in the past we were all in on genetics, and I do think that there's sort of been a ground shift that we've finally maybe decided not that metabolism is it, but the genetics might not be it. So,
and that through all this, there are places you can go for treatment popping up. Things like your initiative, the Metabolic Health Institute. You're going to change lives there, because when I was doing this, when you were doing this, my gosh, you couldn't find treatment or guidance or anything, but it's coming, and it's easier and easier to find. So,
are you looking for health and wellness products that you can trust? Well, I'm excited to share with you the launch of a new online store, drnashaapproved.com. For decades, I've been asked, what products do I use and endorse on a regular basis? In fact, it's the most common asked question I get wherever I go, whether it's a complete stranger on an airplane to trusted colleagues or just curious patients, family, and friends. So now every product that I'm endorsing has been reviewed, tried, because I got to apply it to myself first, and approved
by me to ensure that they meet the highest standards for enhancing your metabolic health and overall well-being. From nourishing supplements that can boost your vitality to relaxing self-care essentials and cutting-edge health gadgets that you can trust, that each and every item in our store has been chosen for its quality and its effectiveness. These are more than just products. They are relationships with the owners and producers of these products that I personally know, of their products that I've personally used, that I feel very comfortable to recommend and stand behind for our shared journey towards better health. Discover the difference at drnashaapproved.com and enjoy a special 15% discount with the code PODCAST15. That's PODCAST15. I'm excited for you to see all that we have to offer to help you and your loved ones stay healthy and empowered on your path to wellness. Your community that you've pulled together with this documentary and that continues to be drawn to you like moths to the light, which is a good thing. Like, you guys are the light. You're bringing in so much. We're also hitching our wagons to each other. We're creating this unified front. We're creating relationships, partnerships, friendships, inspiration, curiosity. It's like there's a momentum that I feel like you have brought to the table that didn't exist before your illness, Maggie.
Wow.
And I just really am grateful for. But it's so true. Like, you guys have brought together so many of the leading voices, and many of them, even probably all of them, have a lot of altruism in their heart and soul because they see that we can do better. And you guys continue to strive for that, even by the way of you saying, I want to make sure I'm putting out a good product for number 2, 3, and 4. Like, you are in that mindset that you want. This is your legacy, and you're helping create legacies for others. So with that, I'm so grateful to have you both in my life, to have your work out in the world. It's an honor and a joy to recommend what you've created, and I can't wait to see what the rest of them come out, birth out to be. Can't wait to see what else we're going to be carrying here in the world soon. So
I made it this long because of you. So thank you for your part in this. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for being a part of the documentary, Nasha. I get to work with the footage, all the time, and it's just I love it when I run across one of your bites. It's just like, it's like, yes, perfect. Just put the button on that. It's great. I feel like your bites always end up right at the end of Yeah, I'm not sure why that happens, but it just seems like I'm kind of wrapping up a thought, and it's like, let's see if Nasha has a bite, like, because you just sort of seem to wrap everything up really nicely. So that's kind of where your bites just sort of fall in.
Love you guys. Well, thank you again for all you do, and I wish you nothing but health and absolute abundance in all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Metabolic Matters. We hope you found today's conversation insightful and empowering. As we wrap up today's episode, we want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible team and supporters who make this podcast possible. First, we'd like to thank our production team, Alex Sanchez, Cindy Kennedy, Jessica Gilman, and Lynn Hughes, for their hard work behind the scenes. Our theme song was written by Julie Newmark and performed by Whiskey Flower. And finally, we want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in and being a part of the Metabolic Matters community. Do you want to learn more? Please visit our website, metabolicmatters.org, and you can follow us on Instagram. If you liked this episode, please leave us a review and share it with your friends and family. And if you want to help support our mission, spreading awareness and knowledge about metabolic health, reach out. We'd love you to join with us. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on upcoming episodes. We have so much exciting content coming your way. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and remember, your metabolic health matters.